Hi, my name is Charmaine Shepherd. Today I'm going to tell you how to create optimal immune function. This is a topic close to my heart because I used to be one of those people who always came down with every infection, colds, flus, and even the nasties such as glandular fever, Lyme's, and shingles. If there was a bug around, I would get it. But then in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and that was serious. So I made some radical changes, and boy, am I glad that I did. So I've compiled in one talk all the things that took me years to research and discover, and today I'm going to share that with you. This talk will cover the basics of the immune system, what the causes are of a weakened immune system, and what you can do this year to prevent infections like colds and flus, and what you can do to throw them off if you are already suffering. This includes an immune superfood diet, immune-boosting nutrition, exercises that strengthen the immune system, as well as stress management. So let's get started. It's very simple. A healthy immune system boils down to how your body copes with its day-to-day environment. Most of us know that the immune system is responsible for fighting foreign invaders such as viruses and bacteria. But we don't always appreciate that the immune system has a major role to play in many degenerative conditions such as inflammatory disease, autoimmune disease, and cancer. This year, hundreds and thousands of visits to GPs will be because of colds and flus, although there's very little that your GP can do as these are caused by viruses and not bacteria. So that makes antibiotics ineffective. But viruses are easily picked up from all surfaces, door handles, cutlery, so being exposed is nearly impossible unless you're neurotically running around with your antibacterial hand wipes and sprays. But succumbing to the virus is a different thing. Just because you come into contact doesn't mean that you'll come down with the infection. The strength of your immune system plays a large role in the development, whether you're going to come down with infection, but also whether you will come down with any degenerative conditions, inflammatory conditions, or things like cancer. So let's look at the 6 main causes why the immune system breaks down. The first is a diet containing too much sugars and grains. The second is not resting enough. We also have stress. And the fourth is nutritional imbalance, such as low levels of vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D, and interestingly, overnutrition as well. Certain medications as well as poor gut function. Let's start with sugar. Sugar has a very destructive and devastating effect on the immune system. I remember as a child in the 70s, there was a big sugar campaign to get us to eat more sugar, saying sugar gives you energy. And so a lot of parents were giving their kids energy to fuel them in the form of sugar. But it didn't take very long for researchers to figure out that children who consumed more sugar, in fact, had more suppressed immune systems. So a few years later, scientists in Canada had a look at what the effect of sugar was on the immune system. And what they did was they took cells, immune cells, put them under the microscope, and then watched what happened when they put sugar in. And they were surprised to find that as soon as they added sugar to the mixture, these immune cells would stop working for several hours. And it took a little while for them to truly understand what was going on. They realized that when cells are given sugar, they're unable to take vitamin C in, they're unable to absorb vitamin C, and we all know that vitamin C is critical for immune function. But by eating sugar, what we do is we stop any uptake of vitamin C, and those immune cells are unable to function. But there's a second reason why sugar is so destructive on the immune system. Sugar fuels the bad bacteria in your intestine, which provides a fertilizer for the bad germs to grow. And not many people are aware, but your digestive system is your first line of defense. Your gut directly comes into contact with many viruses and bacteria from the external environment. Now, your stomach acid will kill most of these, but also the intestine has an immune system of its own. And when you consume sugar, that creates an imbalance in the intestine between the good and bad bacteria, allowing the bad bacteria to flourish, which then causes a disruption on the immune system. The modern diet is so laden with hidden sugars, and I think people are often surprised to find that even salad dressings can contain large amounts of hidden sugar. So make it a habit to check your labels. We now come to the second factor, which is rest. And rest is vital to immune function. While we're sleeping, the immune system has the opportunity to repair itself, but also to scan the body for any foreign invaders, such as viruses or bacteria, but also to search for any cells which may be turning cancerous. So, a study in 2009 took 153 healthy volunteers, and they tracked people's sleeping habits for 14 days. They basically looked at the total hours of sleep as well as the quality of sleep that people were getting. And then they inoculated volunteers with the rhinovirus, which is the cold virus, and waited 5 days. And interestingly, not all of the participants came down with a cold, even though their blood test showed that all of them had, in fact, been successfully infected. Some people's immune systems were able to fight off the infection, and they showed no signs of illness. And then when they compared the results with the sleeping habits, they found that those people who slept less than 7 hours were more than 3 times at risk for coming down with a cold. And the study, of course, was not a surprise to holistic therapists who always advocate healthy sleep patterns. But this is the time during which your body has the capacity to repair and heal. So sleeping is vitally important for immune function. I see this in the clinic every day working with patients. When I look at how much people are sleeping or resting and what the state of their immune system is, the correlation is very clear. Stress is the number one universal health factor underlying major disease, and the immune system does not escape from its devastating effects. During times of stress, the body will raise its production of the stress hormone cortisol. One of the effects of high levels of cortisol is that it suppresses immune system function. Over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of research demonstrating that stress has a very detrimental effect on immune function. And we know that as the stress levels go up, we have reduced white cell activity, reduced production of white cells, as well as reduced production of antibodies. And anybody with ME will also tell you, as soon as there's times of stress, they will have a flare-up of their condition. Now, these effects on the immune system have got very severe consequences on health, which include delayed wound healing, impaired responses to vaccines, being more susceptible to infection, and also the development and progression of cancer. So during times of stress, when cortisol levels become raised, the immune system cells disappear from the blood, and the body is virtually left defenseless. And excessive stress, whether that is physical or mental, really has a very negative effect on the optimal functioning of the immune system. It's like the card that finally tips the balance on the house of cards, bringing everything crashing down. And I think most of you will be very aware of the effect of stress on the immune system. If the immune system is functioning optimally, it will only be minimally affected by stress, but a low immune system will be easily toppled by even minor stresses. Dietary imbalance is without question another one of the major causes of a depressed immune system. For healthy immune function, the body requires certain nutrients for its defenses. And most of us will be aware of the role of vitamin C in immune function, but several other nutrients such as zinc and vitamin B are also critical to immune function. And without adequate levels of these nutrients, the body either does not have the building blocks to build healthy immune cells, or it doesn't have the energy to activate them. And until these dietary deficiencies are addressed, a weakened immune system will not repair. Interestingly enough, overnutrition or eating too much is also associated with diseases such as diabetes and obesity, which are known to affect immune function negatively. So it's about getting the balance just right. Many medications are linked to low immune function, and two of the most researched, however, are drugs in the statin groups, such as simvastatin and Lipitor, as well as drugs that suppress stomach acid. And doctors have known for a really long time that people on these medications have got suppressed immune systems, but it hasn't been until recently that research has backed this up. And a recent study in Switzerland found that transplant patients who were taking statin drugs had remarkably more suppressed immune function. If you are taking one of these medications, that means that you have to be a lot more careful in maintaining your immune function. Now, as for drugs that suppress stomach acid, these are usually ones that are prescribed for heartburn and nausea. Medications such as imoprazole and lansoprazole are linked to higher rates of infection. And in fact, one American hospital study showed that patients who were given these medications had a 30% higher risk of developing pneumonia than those that were not on the medication. And that's because these medicines block your production of stomach acid, and the stomach acid is important for killing a lot of the foreign invaders. And when there isn't enough stomach acid, more of these bugs get through into the system. So if you are reliant on these medications, you will need to take special care of your immune system. Many other medications also have an immune suppressing action, so check your medication side effects carefully. Now, when I talk about gut functioning and the immune system, people are often very surprised and they wonder what their gut has to do with their immune system. But if you think of your intestinal tract, your digestive tract, as an internal skin, it comes directly into contact with the outside world, just like your skin, through everything you ingest through your mouth. This digestive tract has 150 times more surface area than your skin, so you can imagine the size of surface area size of it. And about 60% of your entire immune system resides inside your gut. So when you think of it in that respect, it's not surprising that the GI tract has most of the immune system localized within it. It's got a very difficult role. Your gastrointestinal tract comes into contact with the largest number of different molecules and organisms of any organ in your body. And just as an example, an average person will ingest more than 25 tons of food over his lifetime. So that's a huge amount of work that the digestive tract has in sorting out how to keep damaging molecules from absorbing into the system, while still letting in the nutrients and food components that your body needs to survive. So it has to be very selective in its protection. And the gastrointestinal mucosal layer has a very unique role of keeping out damaging molecules and organisms like harmful bacteria and viruses, while allowing only the health-promoting nutrients, molecules, and substances in. So in a perfect scenario, only the beneficial nutrients and phytonutrients are absorbed into the body, while non-beneficial substances and organisms never make it across the barrier and are excreted from your body. So this is where the choices that you make become really important, because the foods you eat can either provide support for the barrier or it can cause damage to it. For instance, we know that alcohol consumption is known to irritate this mucosal layer, and some medications as well, such as aspirin and ibuprofen, also harm this barrier. Some nutrients help to support the barrier, and foods that are high in something called phosphatidylcholine are particularly beneficial in supporting a healthy gastrointestinal barrier. So the choices that you make in terms of diet are very, very important. Right, so this is the exciting part. This is where we start talking about things that you can do to help boost your immune system. And the first thing we're going to look at is the defenses diet and immune superfoods. So things that are really going to boost your immune system and get it to function optimally. Now, we've already spoken about reducing sugar intake. One thing I will say at this point is that if you're finding it difficult to cut down on sugar, put a little bit more protein into the diet. So each time you find yourself reaching for chocolate or something sugary, make sure that you've got a little bit of protein on hand. So that's either in the form of grilled chicken or grilled fish. And that protein will just help to curb some of the sugar cravings. You might also want to take a small amount of chromium, and that will help to stave off sugar cravings. And also, one more point I would make here is that it's really important to check labels. A lot of hidden sugars are in our foods. So look out on your labels. Look for things like corn syrup, glucose, fructose. These are all hidden forms of sugars which will certainly contribute to the sugar level in the body. The second point on here is reducing or completely eliminating processed foods. Now, before I moved into alternative health, I used to eat a lot of processed foods as it saved me time. But my energy and my immune function was so low that most of the time I spent recovering from infections or just, not functioning at the best level that I could because my energy levels were so low. Now I fully understand that that's not saving time. But I still often, as a therapist, get people quite reluctant to let go of processed foods because they work long hours and they feel that it saves them time. But in the long run, they do so much damage that it's worth taking that little bit of extra time to make sure that you cook, everything from scratch, avoid pre-prepared sauces and anything, because processed foods often contain hidden chemicals which can disrupt immune function. So taking that little bit more time to prepare your food, knowing what goes into it, will pay benefits in the long run. In the third step, we look at eating a very balanced diet to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that you need. So making sure that you've got enough whole grains, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fish and eggs in the diet. And that will give you a level of protection as well, making sure that you're getting most of the nutrients that you eat. In the fourth point, we look at foods that specifically have an action on the immune system. So our immune superfoods, such as fresh fish, garlic, ginger, mushrooms, kale, broccoli, goji berries, and blueberries. Now, these are all foods that have been recognized as having certain components in them that can boost immune function. It's also worth mentioning medicinal mushrooms here, as these can be very powerful in supporting the immune system. And in my time when I worked in China, doctors would often recommend their patients to eat these mushrooms when there was lowered immune function. And they can be remarkably effective in building the immune system up. So when we talk about medicinal mushrooms, we talk about mushrooms such as shiitake, lychee, and there have been quite a lot of evidence in some clinical studies that have shown that these can upregulate the immune system. Lastly, I always recommend to patients to eat foods that are rich in phosphatidylcholine. Now, this is the component we spoke about a little bit earlier on when we talked about the gut. Phosphatidylcholine helps to maintain that mucosal layer in the intestine, just supporting the immune system in being able to discriminate what it needs to absorb. So phosphatidylcholine found in cauliflower, lentils, oats, sesame, as well as peanut butter. So this reminds me of a case I had of a young teacher who I started seeing a couple of years ago. And he came in with very low immune function. He was getting just about every bug that was going around in the classroom and feeling very, very stressed about it. It was his first year of teaching and he had really wanted to impress and wanted to really work hard, but he felt that he was ill so much of the time and it became a big concern. When we spoke about eliminating processed foods, we looked at his diet. He was eating a lot of pre-prepared foods as well and saying, well, I just don't have the time to prepare meals. I'm working so hard on my lessons that my focus is on on my work, and I don't have the time to do this. But he decided to go away and try it. And within a month of changing his diet, his immune function had markedly improved. Stopped getting bugs, energy went up. And once again, it just shows that, yes, you may invest a little bit more time in preparing your meals, but the benefits in the long run really do pay off. Now, nutritional immune boosters are vitamins and minerals that are really going to boost the immune function. And a healthy, balanced diet will provide the support for immune system building blocks, but let's look at some of these individual ones. Vitamin C is at the top of the list of immune boosters for many reasons. It's the most researched vitamin when it comes to immune function, and the research that we have shows that this mighty vitamin protects your body by increasing the production of infection-fighting white blood cells and antibodies. And also, because of its potent immune function, persons whose diets are higher in vitamin C have lower rates of colon, prostate, and breast cancer. Now, if you're already ill with an infection, it will decrease the length of time and severity of symptoms associated with the infection. And vitamin C also provides antioxidant activity to support healing at sites of inflammation. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because we also know that high sugar intake prevents the absorption of vitamin C. So taking vitamin C supplements is pretty much useless if you're still having a lot of sugar in your diet. So you need to cut sugar sources from the diet if you want your vitamin C to have its optimal effect. And most researchers agree that although supplementation is helpful, there is no better way of getting vitamin C than from fruits and vegetables directly. So about 6 to 7 portions of fruit and veg are recommended daily. And the best sources of vitamin C include parsley, broccoli, bell pepper, strawberries, oranges. You've got the rest of them on your screen there. One thing to keep in mind is that if you have arthritis or any type of pain in the body, make sure that if you are supplementing with vitamin C, that you have a non-acidic form. Otherwise, it will contribute to pain. Now, many of the B vitamins also support healthy immune function. In particular, we know that B1, B2, B5, folic acid, and B12 are needed for healthy immune function. So supplementing during times of stress with a good quality vitamin B complex is necessary, and that's because stress tends to use up more of the body's vitamin Bs. So if you're going through a particularly stressful time, it might be necessary to supplement with Bs. But in terms of food, it's good to keep a variety of foods such as almonds, spinach, fish, green peas, brown rice, and sunflower seeds in the diet. Now, zinc is another nutrient that is a very potent immunostimulant, and its deficiency can result in profound suppression of the immune system. This is a tricky one as well, because an excess of zinc has shown negative effects on immune function and can also inhibit immune function. So maintaining adequate but not excessive levels of zinc is important. And this is one reason why food is such an excellent source of obtaining nutrition versus supplementation. Your food contains a balanced variety of micronutrients, whereas supplementation with individual nutrients, especially zinc, can lead too much of this nutrient. So healthy levels of zinc can be provided by including good sources such as Swiss chard, collard greens, summer squash, winter squash, as well as lamb. So unless you have very low immune function, I would recommend getting your zinc from food sources. So many therapists can test your zinc status very quickly through a zinc taste test. So ask your practitioner about testing your zinc levels. Vitamin D is one vitamin that has got a lot of press recently, and we now know that it's critical for both triggering and arming the immune system. And there's been a lot in the media connecting low levels of vitamin D to conditions such as MS as well as cancer. So people are becoming more aware of how important vitamin D is for immune function. Now, most of us know that vitamin D is synthesized in sunlight. And although you can also get your vitamin D from foods such as oily fish and eggs, sunlight is the major major part where you're going to be getting your vitamin D from. So certainly the recommendations for the UK and for Scotland, where we get very little lighting, not enough lighting throughout the year, is that you should be having between October and March, when lighting levels are lower, about 1,000 units of vitamin D a day. Back again to rest. And it's essential to get between 7 and 8 hours of sleep a night. But if you're having difficulty sleeping, take caffeine out of the diet completely. Even drinking caffeine in the early hours of the day can have an impact on sleep that night. And train your body by going to bed at the same time every night. So even if you're not falling asleep, make sure that the body gets into that routine of going to bed at a specific time. Drinking calming tea such as valerian or chamomile could also help just to relax the body. And keep your meal times early so that the body is not using all its energy on trying to digest when you're trying to fall asleep. Learn a relaxation technique that can help a lot if you find that the reason why you're not sleeping is because your mind is very active. And then lastly, I'll just say about alcohol. Although alcohol puts you to sleep, it can cause difficulty in maintaining sleep. So very often it can be the reason why people wake up later in the night. So if you're having difficulty sleeping, take alcohol out of the diet as well. If you're already doing these things and still having difficulty sleeping, do go and get it seen to, because as we know, rest is really critical to immune function. So don't just put up with not being able to sleep. We'll now look at a little technique that you can use to reduce your stress levels, even in today's world where people are overwhelmed by a variety of work stresses, financial stresses. Stress levels can run really high at times. But there's a little technique that I was taught by Jenny Livingston and Ben Young, who work in the center with me, which is a relaxation breath technique, which I have found to be incredibly successful with patients in reducing their stress levels. Ben and Jenny have been teaching this to our patients for many years, and it basically trains the nervous system into a much more resilient state. And the great thing about it is that it takes only 3 to 5 minutes a day. Now, this is a separate part, so if you go and have a look on the video material, you will find a little bit about stress and the material on breathing. But I very much recommend learning this technique. It's very simple and literally takes about 3 to 5 minutes a day to practice and can have a great effect. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Qigong exercises for immune function. And this is one ancient and very simple technique that works every time. So when I was studying in Singapore in China, I studied with Professor Gong, who was a remarkable man in his 70s and who worked incredibly long hours and did a lot of travel. And I'd been with him for a couple of years, and I'd noticed that he never came down with any kind of infection. And I asked him the secret to what it is that he does. And he taught me a very simple Qigong technique, which I've been teaching to patients for many years. And it has a remarkable effect on the immune system. Now, it takes less than 2 minutes to do every day. So please look out for our Qigong video clip, and you'll be shown exactly how to do this technique. It's really simple. If you already have an infection, the best thing to do is, first of all, make sure you're getting enough rest. This really isn't the time to be working through it or pushing through it or going to the gym. Give your body the rest that it needs to recuperate. You should also be taking about 2 grams of vitamin C a day and 25 milligrams of zinc. And you can take echinacea tea up to 3 cups a day until you start to feel better. And then finally, I have a wonderful recipe which comes from ancient Chinese texts, and it really does work. It's a fantastic recipe to boost the immune system, and it's got shiitake mushroom in, which we've seen is one of the very strong immune boosters, as well as garlic, ginger, and goji berries, which are fantastic for the immune system. So really good to eat throughout winter, even when you don't have a cold or an infection at the time. You can use it almost as a prevention. So I hope you've enjoyed the lecture and learned something from it today. Look out for the Qigong clip. Try and incorporate that into your routine every day. Like I said, it only takes 2 minutes and can make a huge difference to overall immune function. And then finally, we'll be adding some more lectures to our website, so have a look out for those. And if you know of anybody who could benefit from listening to these, please pass them on. Thanks for listening.